Hi, welcome to another episode of MYD Global. I'm your host, Leanne Hackman-Carty, and today we're going to talk about debris management. Chuck Vollmer is the president and CEO of Jobenomics, and his organization has an initiative called urban mining. We're going to talk today about how this concept can be applied to communities that are dealing with post-disaster recovery and cleanup, and how implementing this particular solution can actually create jobs and provide products that are useful for that community going forward. So stay tuned. Hi, Chuck. It's nice to see you again.
Hi, Leanne.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's beautiful weather in Washington, D.C., and I hope it's okay in Alberta, Canada.
Yeah, it's okay here today. So one of the things that for those who may not be familiar with you and your work, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? I know we could probably spend 3 hours talking about it, but just your background. It's very interesting.
Well, I'm kind of an oxymoron. I started off my life as a fighter pilot, so that's one of my. I spent a lot of time in the aerospace industry. I went to work with large consulting firms, and then I started my own business. So I've gone from big to medium to little, and for the last 10 years, I've been the author and founder of the Jobenomics Washington, or the Jobenomics National Grassroots Movement, which is we've got 20 chapters, including yours up in Alberta and Washington, D.C. I've written 11 books on economic community workforce development, and our website gets about 30 to 50,000 page views a month.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today is when I'm going out in communities and talking post-disaster, one of the biggest challenges that they're finding increasingly is that whole debris management piece. When you have all this garbage, all this destruction around you, and what you do with it. And I think, when your Jobenomics urban mining initiative, I think is really relevant to communities. So can you explain how that works?
Sure. And urban mining is the inverse of digging up the ground. It's actually taking the end of life waste. Now, there are about four types. There's a construction demolition material, which is largely aggregates. So think about road, concrete, that type of things. And you got tires, which consist of rubber and the steel belts in them. And then you've got the municipal solid waste, which is mainly organics, high chloride, burnable solutions in it. Excuse me, I've got stutters here for some reason, but that's okay. I'm a young guy, so I'm just getting out of puberty. So you can turn the caloric value into energy, syngas, and then you could take the end of life electronics that goes including anything with minerals, the computers, the large appliances, the vending machines, the toys, the lighting, the lamping, and stuff. And you could turn that into raw materials, and it's called materials recovery facilities, MRF for short. So we in our urban mining, we look at municipalities like in Calgary or in disaster areas as well. Now, Calgary puts out a lot of waste, and so we monetize that, and we want to do that locally rather than giving to the big companies or putting in a landfill. On the other end of the spectrum, when you got a hurricane that goes through, and especially one of the islands or something like that, just knocks everything down, that is we consider feedstock. For example, the trees that are down, you could turn that into mulch or into pellets. You could take the old yachts that have been blown over, it can't do anything. You could deconstruct it and extract the electronics, the plastics. You could take the old refrigerators and all the downed wires, and you could process that. For example, if you just take a number 2 wire, the one that you plug your computer in, if you strip off the outer coating, that's number 1 bright copper, and it sells for about $6,000 a ton. And so all you need is a wire stripping machine. So after a natural disaster, you and I are both familiar with that because we're both on the board of the International Center for Sustainability. And so the first thing they do is a recovery period. And so they want to get everybody well, they want to get everybody, fixed up. And then they have kind of a phase one, but we're kind of a phase three type of thing, is that if we could use that, the debris and monetize it, either into waste to energy, waste to compost, waste to raw materials, waste to precious metals, we can actually help clean up the place in the first place, and then also put money back into it. And then once the recovery operation is done, then the organic waste is generated, like used tires, used refrigerators, used appliances, used computers, that we can process and then turn that money back into the community to provide jobs. And so, if there is a bright lining between a disaster, it is the fact that we got mountains of raw materials that, rather than put in a landfill, let's reclaim the value out of it.
Yeah. And that's why I love this solution so much, because you see these people where they've got a natural disaster, they because things happen so fast and most are not prepared, they take all this debris, they put it in their landfill, and what should have been a 20-year or 50-year lifespan on that landfill is all of a sudden filled. And it's got stuff in it that you could have diverted, in your case, to different methods of recycling, reusing, repurposing. And I think that that's brilliant. And at the same time, creating jobs. And so, and that's another thing where disasters hit and people all of a sudden they can't work. And so I think it's brilliant, this concept.
We have two programs that we're really pushing in Jobenomics. One is eCycling USA, which we formed to provide the inner cities and rural areas, like in Calgary or in Buffalo or Atlanta, wherever it is, a means to provide workforce and business development funds. For example, in most U.S. cities, and I assume in Calgary, is that you export all your electronic waste, and that's where all the high value stuff. The printed circuit boards have gold and platinum and palladium and tin, and the refrigerators have copper, aluminum, plastics, and so all that is high value commodities. And rather than doing traditional mining, we're about 90% more effective environmentally. We don't put stuff in the air. We don't disturb the ecosystem. And like I said, when you put it in a landfill, not only landfills are filling up, they're hard to permit now, and they eventually leach into the ground. And so by doing it our way, we're monitored. We're EPA certified. We have all the R2 regulations. We don't emit anything in the air, and any of the toxic stuff that comes through, like batteries right now, are still considered toxic. Matter of fact, I'm joining a board of directors of a lithium-ion battery and leading the ion battery recycling. And when electric vehicles come in, what are we going to do with all those? And most of the stuff is pretty toxic in the lithium-ion batteries. That's why Tesla puts titanium shielding in their cars and put the batteries in a titanium shield, because of the thermal runaway. And so if you can handle this all in responsibility, not only you can provide money for the local communities, create ancillary business like warehousing, collection, that type of thing, as well as the operation. And then you're also doing the environmentally sound thing to do. It's kind of a win-win-win situation. And what's nice I hate to say nice, in a disaster area, we've sent some teams down, and why rebuild back to the old standard when everything's kind of cleared off?
Yeah.
Why don't we rebuild to a new standard and use the repurpose not only the end of life debris, but also create the next generation businesses.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So if anyone wanted to get in touch with you, to whether they've just experienced a disaster or they're wanting to prepare and address this piece pre-disaster, is it best to just go onto your Jobenomics website and contact you through there, or what's the best way, would you suggest?
Well, you certainly can go to jobenomics.com and you'll put the website on there. But the other way to do it is go through the Institute for Sustainable Development, with you and Steve Jordan and Lynn Knight. They're expert from end to end, from the recovery to, and I'm on the board. So when you get down to my thing, I just like to be at the table when you're talking about. For example, the problem with most disaster areas, they get a lot of money pledged, but they don't ever seem to ever get it spent and in the right way. And so once the TV studio or the TV, the media is away and not showing all the, the crying babies and, the bruised, grandmothers and grandfathers, then it just doesn't seem to happen. The relief funds only go so far. They never get to the pro side. So you need to build it in the front end. And we'll just think of the aggregates, the amount of, bricks and concretes and asphalt and stuff like that. You can use those up, and for climate change, you can start building seawalls for low areas for so there's a lot of uses for the whole use of the stuff that was all processed and manufactured in one place. So you just reversing the order.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I love the concept. So, I mean, I want to thank you for being with us today and sharing kind of some of the great work that you're doing in communities across the U.S. and beyond. And hopefully someone watching this will understand that, garbage can be turned into something positive after disaster, and it doesn't have to become your second disaster after things happen. So
we can get this implemented very rapidly. I sent you a short video. You can put it on there. It's about 30 seconds. You can get this thing up and running in about within a year. Actually, the assembly of these plants, these MRFs, these material recovery plants, only takes a couple of months, and it's not all that expensive.
Yeah, well, I will share that. I'll put those links on the description in the video below. And thanks again for being with me today, Chuck. I know we'll hear more and more about this as you expand outward from where you're doing your work today. And so for those of you who want to subscribe, feel free to press subscribe and talk all things disaster in future videos. So thanks again, Chuck, for being with me.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.